welcome to Media MD, your fortnightly Doof Network dose of media that you have somehow missed. I'm Ruben Morehouse.
I'm Elliot Diebold.
And we are back to talk about Little Shop of Horrors, which was prescribed by Aqua Buddha, one of our listeners. Thank you, Buddha. Genuinely thank you, because I really liked this.
Yeah. Well, do you want to launch into the plot summary, Ruben?
Yeah.
You've written better notes than I did, so you should take the wheel.
So here's the plot. We follow a man called Seymour who is living in Skid Row in New York, I think.
I assume New York, yeah.
Yeah. Which is like slums, and he basically dreams of getting out of here, but he works in this flower shop, and it's obviously a bit of a dead-end job, and he's got a bit of a dead-end life until one day he finds a strange plant. And this plant starts to turn his life around because it's of a type nobody has seen before. People all over the world come to start seeing this plant. And he takes off and becomes a celebrity. The problem is, of course, because there is a problem. The problem is this plant only feasts on human blood. So he starts off by bleeding himself to feed the plant, and then eventually kind of accidentally feeds people to the plant. And then eventually...
Well, I wouldn't have said it was an accident.
Well, yeah. He feeds people that have accidentally died around him to the plant, I guess. And then it turns out, spoiler alert, this plant is actually an alien here to take over the world. And then it does.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the short version of it for sure. It's such a, like, I think my favorite...
There is more to it than that, but that's the 1 minute plot summary, right?
Yeah. I think my favorite bit is just how kind of the reason it seems that he ended up with the plant is because collecting weird plants is his hobby.
Yes.
Which is just such and I that's just such a great example of how wacky this story is.
Yeah, it is very wacky. It basically functions as a bit of a parody of musicals, I would say. Like, it feels like it's satirizing other musicals. Specifically, I think there's a lot of Sweeney Todd allusions here, because it's literally a shop where there's a secret murder, thing going on, which is basically Sweeney Todd. But it's just so fun. It's just such a fun musical, right?
Yeah, like if it is meant to be satirizing it, it's indulging in those
exactly
tropes as much as it is satirizing them.
Yes, it's very lovingly kind of making fun of musicals in my mind. There's a scene that really solidified this to me, which is the shop is in hard times, and so they him and the love interest, whose name is Audrey, and Seymour kind of has a crush on her, and she has a crush on him, but because of circumstances, they haven't gotten together. But he's told her about this strange plant, and she suggests to Mr. Mushnik, the guy who runs and owns the flower shop, hey, what if we put Seymour's weird plant in the window, and that might draw people in? And of course, that's an insane idea. So Mr. Mushnik says, what are you talking about? And then they do it, and immediately somebody walks in and he goes, hi, I just saw that plant in the window and I'd love to come in and check it out. Oh, and while I'm here, I'll buy 100 roses. Yeah. And it's so obviously like ridiculous. Like, he's even got this like, I mean, he looks like an alien. Like, if this is an alien invasion, there's a read on this movie where this guy is just like one of the aliens that's there to like seed the takeover a bit.
Yeah, I agree. Like, this movie doesn't bother being subtle about anything, including its contrivances.
It lets itself be a Broadway musical, and everyone who's watching it obviously wants it to be that, and so it's fine,
Yeah, exactly. As we sort of touched on before, it's indulging in being as ridiculous as it can be. And I mean, like, a lack of subtlety is something that I think touches every aspect of the film. Audrey in particular.
Yes, she's incredible. And I was going to bring up one example, which is, so that the example I just talked about, the guy who walks in is clearly like fresh off of stage. He is not a subtle joke, but one that I thought was a bit more subtle and I really liked was Audrey's arm is broken at one point, and she's just got a fishnet cast. And it's never commented on that her cast is not made out of cast, it's fishnet. But she just has a fishnet cast and nobody seems to comment on it. It's ridiculous. And I love it.
Yeah, she's I mean, I think it partially works as well because she's meant to be like an insecure person, so it actually sort of
Yes.
comes up.
She's very much a ditzy kind of archetype.
Yeah, but she's almost trying to be as well because she's
Yeah.
got it in her head that that's the only way she can find success, and that kind of counterbalances with like Seymour's own sort of related issues. Like they're both insecure people, and that's just like, so she kind of objectifies herself.
Yes.
I guess because she thinks that's what she's meant to do.
Yeah.
And I think the story does a good job of having fun with it while also kind of, sort of saying this isn't what she has to do.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Audrey's very interesting because she's in this, everything in this movie is dialed up to 11, right? And so she's in this dialed up to 11 abusive relationship, which is cartoonishly abusive. And you kind of start thinking, oh, okay, her journey, and what she thinks her journey kind of is falling in love with Seymour and being like redeemed by him, which is very much like an old school musical kind of thing. And they say it so explicitly that is just them making fun of the idea that this girl needs to be redeemed by a different man. Like, it was so over the top that I was just like, well, they're just making fun of that idea completely. And I totally love it.
Well,
yeah.
We'll get to the ending later.
Well, yes. Okay. Okay. We'll get to that later. Because there's a lot of stuff to talk about before we get to the ending, which I think there's like so much in this movie, right? Like it's so, it's just so much stuff, right? And I really loved it for that. I want to call out some specific things that I really liked. The opening of the movie, the first like 10 minutes, I think is perfect. Like genuinely, maybe it's a perfect 10 minutes of a movie.
Yeah, I like, because does that include both of the first two songs? Because I think they're my two favorites. The sort of opening song and Skid Row in particular are both incredible.
Yeah, and not just the music, but the opening shots of this movie are this depressing brown and grey place, Skid Row, which is raining, and then we have these kind of three singers, these three female singers who are, singing, and they're wearing these like electric blue dresses, and they're like parading through and doing this like upbeat song about setting the stage for the movie.
I mean, they remind me of the Three Fates from Hercules, right?
Yes,
like
exactly.
It's like three narrator singers. I was like, oh, is this happening again? Why do we have three narrator singers again?
I loved it in Hercules, and I loved it even more in this because it's so musically and just bizarre. Like it's storming outside in Skid Row, and they're just kind of walking through the storm and not getting wet, and it's this cool little practical effect where they're just not getting wet in the rain, and you're just like, yeah, they're just like these weird musical spirits that are guiding us through this movie, and it's so engaging.
Yeah, I agree. You're right. They stand out very visually, and it's a fun way to just exposit through song. And I think because that's something, like as you said, like the setting of this movie is meant to be a very bleak place, and in fact, like tonally, everything about the story should be very kind of downcast.
It's a really depressing movie, right?
Yeah,
like
but
nothing goes well.
Is so fun, and I don't know if there's a technical term for like boppy, but like
I wrote boppy as well. Let me read out the specific line in my notes. I said the Skid Row song is also so fucking bopping. It was like one of my first notes about this.
Yeah, like it's just such a fun, high energy, musical, and I mean, I think that contrasts really well. Like that, it just makes it fun. Otherwise, I think this could be just a real depressing story.
Yeah, because it is a sad story, right? But we'll get to that. We'll get to that stuff. I want to talk about. Actually, what do I want to talk about? I think the way to sum up how I feel about this movie is it takes that kind of like campy, dialed up to 11-ness of musicals and transposes it really, really well into a movie. That's like my thesis statement for this movie.
Yeah, I would agree. Like I mean, that hasn't really come up yet. Like we're talking about a movie of a stage musical.
Yes.
And I guess just because this movie captured the essence of a stage musical so well, I didn't even think to it didn't even really occur to me that we didn't watch it on stage. I mean, obviously I know I didn't watch it on stage, but you know what I mean? Like, it didn't feel like a movie musical. It just felt like a stage musical.
Yes, it really, like, musical adaptations to movies don't always work very well, right? I mean, you've got the Tim Burton Sweeney Todd, which is pretty good, and then you've got like Les Mis or God forbid Cats, and they're like whatever, right? But this is probably, of all the ones that I've seen, the best translation of a musical into a movie. It just works so well.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested now to try and see if I can see it on stage to see how it compares, because I feel like I may not necessarily feel like it's that different. Whereas you're right, you see the movie and the stage version of Les Mis, and they feel very, very distinct.
So let me give you a weird point of comparison, because I tried to watch this movie on Amazon Prime, and on Amazon Prime they have a movie called Little Shop of Horrors, but it's from 1960, and it's actually the original black comedy kind of cult classic movie that the musical was then based on, that this movie was then based on the musical. Right?
Oh, so this is one of those full circle type
It's
deals.
gone a full circle, yes. And the original movie is, obviously it's the same plot-ish, there's differences, but it's so interesting. Tracking the trajectory of this, what is a kind of, it's a black comedy, so it's still quite aiming to be quite a funny movie, but it...
Was the 1961, was it also a musical?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, so it's kind of like if they made Heathers the musical into a movie.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a good explanation, because Heathers the movie is like a bit subtly, like it's obviously a black comedy, but it's it doesn't like rub its theatricalness in your face the way that the Heathers musical does, because it's a musical and that's what musicals do, right? So you can imagine the musical movie of Heathers would be so different from the original movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've gone off on a weird tangent here, but the point is, like, the translation of this into a musical and then back into a movie, I think it really was a good decision, because it worked so well. The cast is incredible. Can we talk about Steve Martin, who is such a strange character?
Yeah. I like the whole dentist bit didn't quite work for me.
Oh, really?
As well as as much as the rest of the movie. I don't know exactly why. I enjoyed that it was Steve Martin. I enjoyed that it was some weird Elvis ripoff thing for some reason. But I was glad it was really only the one song that he was in.
Oh, really? Interesting. I really liked that. So Steve Martin is the abusive boyfriend of Audrey. And he only has one song, and it's after Seymour says something like, oh, he has a job. What kind of job could he ever have? And his song is basically him singing about how he's a psychopath. And so his mother gave him the advice of, if you're going to be a psychopath and hurt somebody, at least turn those skills to use and become a dentist, which is a pretty good joke. I mean, I thought it was a pretty funny joke, but it does go on a bit long, I think. And then the bit with Bill Murray, where Bill Murray is like this sadistic...
Yeah, that was funny.
Masochistic... like dental patient, and gets off on the sadism that Steve Martin's dentist is inflicting on him. It's really weird. Like, this movie just goes into a lot of weird little skits that I found very enjoyable.
I mean, that skit does sort of establish something, because it really pisses off Steve Martin that Bill Murray is enjoying the pain. Like, that's, you really establish there that what he likes is hurting people.
He likes hurting people, exactly.
Yeah. Like, and it has to be causing them emotional pain as well as physical.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, just a good cast, I guess, is the point I was going to make there. The voice of Audrey 2, a guy called Levi Stubbs, who voices the plant Audrey 2, has such an incredible voice. And his singing voice is also incredible. And I just really enjoyed his performance. I really enjoyed all the performances. Rick Moranis, great.
Yeah.
It's all good shit, man.
Yeah. We actually didn't touch on the fact the plant is named the Audrey 2.
Yes.
Which is just kind of, again, hilarious, and just shows how not on the ball Audrey and Seymour really are with their feelings for each other. That doesn't click for either of them.
Yeah, well, I think Seymour knows why he's called it that, but Audrey's just like, oh, that's adorable, but Seymour's out of my league because I have such low self-esteem. Actually, one of the funniest scenes in the movie to me was Audrey saying to Seymour, you have low self-esteem, you've got to snap out of it, which is the exact advice she was just given like 5 minutes ago. It's classic.
Yeah, it perfectly sums up what's going on with both of them.
Yeah. So it's been hanging over us like a cloud, Elliot. Should we talk about this ending?
Yes. So yeah, I mean, to give context to everyone listening, what happened was about 4 days ago, Aqua Buddha got in touch with me again, just to sort of mention that there's like an original director's cut ending to the film, and the theatrical version has a different one. And I said
because the test audiences reacted
Yeah,
really poorly to the ending, basically.
fucking, another movie gets hurt by test audiences.
I do want to talk about which of the endings is better, because I think there's pros and cons to each. But anyway,
Yeah, that's fair. But it was funny because then I got in contact with you. It was just like, hey, just a heads up, there's an alternate ending. And here's a link to it, like, because I'd found a
On
video
YouTube,
that was just the last 15 minutes that had been changed, and you'd actually watched a copy that had the original ending.
Original
so
ending.
you had
So
to
I
go
was
find
very
the theatrical
confused.
one.
I watched the original ending and was like, wow, there's a different, there's a different ending to this. And that, this it was what they changed it to. This is so dour and depressing. But then, yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's like, part of me almost wishes Aqua didn't get in contact with us, because imagine if we were figuring this out we would be figuring it out
show,
now.
Yeah,
that would have been
pretty fun.
such a fantastic train wreck. Either that, or you might have mentioned the ending, and I would have sat here being like, did I fall asleep for the last 10 minutes? What's going on?
Well, did I just assume what should have happened in any musical did happen in this? Do you want to talk about the ending that was released theatrically, and I'll talk about the original cut ending afterwards?
Yeah, sure. So basically what happens is, after pseudo murdering a couple of people, Seymour decides that he doesn't really want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
So he proposes to Audrey. They agree to run off together. Audrey 2, the plant, overhears this, and kind of, well, it doesn't quite overhear it, but anyway, figures it out. Lures Audrey in, tries to eat her. Seymour manages to save her, tries to fight the plant. It doesn't really go well. The plant brings the building down on top of them, and Seymour just kind of survives, which is at the time I was like, oh, that's weird. And in retrospect, I was like, well, okay, because they changed the ending. And he just gets up and electrocutes Audrey 2. It dies, and then he and Audrey 1 run off together and kind of live the perfect life that they had dreamed of.
Yes,
and that's
which
the
is
end.
It's very much a idyllic happy ending. Now, to talk about the original cut ending, I have to mention an earlier song that comes up. A song called Somewhere That's Green, which is Audrey's song when she's singing about how she's really unhappy in her current abusive relationship and wishes that she could live in a place like a magazine, right? And she kind of points out this magazine of better homes and gardens and shows off these perfectly, American dream style suburban lawns.
I was going to say, it's that classic 1950s.
Yes,
the
it's
American
the kind
dream.
of nuclear family style American dream thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Down to the fact that when they go to bed, you see their bedroom and they have two twin beds next to each other, which I really admired. That's wild. So it's kind of it's her song singing about what she wants to do, right? So the original cut ending differs from the point at which Audrey is lured into the flower shop where Audrey 2 is. Audrey 2 attacks Audrey 1, and Seymour goes in to attempt to save her and pulls her out of Audrey 2's mouth, but she's sustained wounds heavy enough that she dies. So Audrey dies in this, and with her dying breath, she says to Seymour, my last gift that I can give to you is for you to feed me to Audrey 2, because then you can continue to be successful and happy, and all I want is for you to be happy. And then she sings a reprise of Somewhere That's Green, implying that her happiness now is being eaten by Audrey 2. And it's the most insane reprise. As soon as it started, I was like, oh my God, this is so fucked up. It's genuinely the most fucked up thing I've ever seen in a musical. And it's so good. It's the best, Chekhov's gun kind of reinterpretation of an earlier plot point that I've ever seen. It was incredible.
Reprises that twist on the original meaning of the song are so good, and this might be the best one I've seen. I'm so glad I got to go back and watch this, because you're right. The inversion of Somewhere Green, I was just like, that's fucking brilliant.
Yes, it actually is so good that I thought for a moment the whole musical had been written just to have this reprise joke in there, because it's genuinely that incredible. And I was so blindsided by it, and I shouldn't have been, considering green is obviously associated with plants, and I could have seen that coming, but I just didn't.
No, I had the same thing. It was Somewhere Green, and I was like, oh,
it's so obvious in retrospect, right? Yes. So then, in the original cut ending, Seymour does do this. He goes in and he feeds Audrey to Audrey 2. and you get this scene of her kind of slowly sliding into its throat, which is incredibly messed up. And the whole movie from here is pretty messed up. Then Seymour kind of freaks out because he realizes that Audrey 2's plan is just to feast on more and more households, and that Audrey 2 is going to take over the United States and the world because clippings of Audrey 2 are starting to spread out and take off as the popularity of Seymour and this plant take off. And so he tries to fight it, and Audrey 2 plays with him for a bit, singing a song to him about how much of a mean green plant machine he is, and then murders him. And then the movie ends with like a 5-minute montage of these plants just taking over the world and kind of spoofing like Godzilla and King Kong and stuff.
It's
and
pretty
it's
great.
Insane. And then the movie ends, and it's genuinely like a 5-minute long montage set to a song. There's no like dialogue or anything. It's just kind of humans dying for 5 minutes. It's an insane ending.
It's this bizarre, yeah, you're right, like a sort of homage to Godzilla and other kaiju movies.
Like Planet of the Apes as well, a bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, but like, you know, they have them climbing all over the Statue of Liberty, which is obviously a must in any disaster film.
Yes.
You've got to knock over the Statue of Liberty. Yeah, like it again, it was just like, it was so bizarre sitting down a couple of days later to watch this alternate ending and just being like, man, what the hell happened here? Like,
I know.
It's so different.
It's really different. And I get why they changed it, because I actually think the final 5 minutes montage is too much for this movie. It is too much. I think the ending of Audrey dying and the reprise of Somewhere That's Green is so good, but I actually do think it would be better if it either Seymour escapes alive, but Audrey 2 still takes over the world and we don't see a whole montage, or just Seymour dies and that's kind of the end, and then it's implied that Audrey 2 takes over the world. Like, I don't know. It went a bit long, I think.
I would agree that it was maybe excessively long. But I think like as an ending, it does make way more sense for us to see the plants take over the world, because
it feels thematically more on point for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as we sort of touched on, this movie doesn't deal with subtlety, and the obvious through line that's going on here is that Seymour is, you know, putting his morals aside to get rich and famous,
and putting the entire human race aside, right?
Yeah, well, exactly, and that's the thing. He puts his humanity aside, and that results in humanity getting eaten by plants. You know, of course. And so, yeah, I don't know. And again, you get that Somewhere Green reprise. So I think, like, if it was my job to tweak the ending, I'd maybe just cut a couple of shots from the ending montage of the plants, but I think it's a much more solid ending.
I agree. There was one shot in it I really liked as well, which is when there's some military guys shooting at the plants, and one of them just clearly mouths, "What the fuck?" And there's no audio to it, but he's clearly mouthing it, and it's so funny. Yeah. And that's this movie. I mean, it's like, the summary of this movie is just take every trope about a musical, take what is quite a unique story about a guy finding a strange alien plant that gives him, you know, fame and fortune at a cost of making him a murderer, and just like play it up 100%, and it turns into this great combination.
Yeah, you're right. It's such a bizarre storyline.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? I wonder, like, I didn't watch the entirety of the original movie, but I should have gone back and watched more of it, because I'm so curious. I know there are parts that are changed, and I was reading through it and kind of skipping around through it. And there's things like, in the original movie, Audrey 2, or it's called Audrey Jr. in the original movie, dies but eats Seymour. And actually there's this funny thing where all the people that he's fed to Audrey Jr., they, you know, at the end of this movie, okay, all right, I just got to explain this. At the end of this movie, when Audrey 2 is singing the Mean Green Plant Machine song, and the kind of buds come out and start singing along with him.
Oh, I love that bit, yeah.
It's great. It's such a good bit. So Audrey Jr. also has buds, and when they open in the original movie, they don't sing, obviously, but they've got like the faces of all the people that have been fed to Audrey Jr. And that's how people find out that Seymour has murdered people, is because Mushnik and the dentist, like, their faces appear in these buds, and everyone's like, oh shit, Seymour, you've murdered people and fed them to this plant. And the movie ends with Seymour attacking Audrey Jr., dying in the process and getting eaten by it, but also killing it. And then a bud with his face comes out and says, oh, I didn't mean it, I'm so sorry. And then Audrey 2 dies, and that's the end of the movie. It's a bizarre ending, but it's very 60s. And I forgot what the point of this what the point of this tangent was, but it's just fun to think about the original movie and the stuff that's changed, I guess.
Yeah, like that little detail changing it from Audrey Jr. to Audrey 2 is, I think summarizes how the musical just dials everything up to 11 because that's an objectively stupid a name.
Yes, it is.
And I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. Like, genuinely, I loved it so much. It's gone up into one of my favorite movies of all time now, just because it's so... It's designed to appeal to every stupid person who loves musical theatre, right? Like, it's just the perfect combination of musical theatre bits.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So let's give it a number, Elliot.
Yeah. Oh, well, first of all, like, did we say what our favourite songs are?
Oh, okay. Yeah, of course. We promised that. I mean, there actually are some really good songs in here, right?
Yeah.
The first two songs you mentioned, there's one called Prologue, or Little Shop of Horrors, and there's one called Downtown, which they're both like very, very good songs. There's some other quite famous ones, like Suddenly Seymour and Somewhere That's Green, I think are songs that are more famous from this movie.
Yeah, I mean, and they're all good.
They are good. I like Grow For Me, which is the song where Seymour's trying to figure out what to feed it. That's quite a good one.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm going to go boring and just say Skid Row, like Downtown was my favorite song. That might be
the best song in there, yeah.
It seems like the obvious pick, but yeah. I was surprised like how fun all the music was in this.
Yeah, maybe to help give a bit of a rating for context, on Spotify I maintain a playlist of songs that I like from musicals. It's called Musicals But Only the Good Songs. And every time I find a new musical that I love, each musical gets a score based on what proportion of songs in its soundtrack go into this playlist, right? It's my kind of metric for how good a musical is.
Makes sense.
And there's 13 songs in the original motion picture soundtrack, and 9 of them have gotten into musicals, but only the good songs. So that's a pretty good score.
Yeah, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, quite a high score.
I'll have to get a copy of this playlist off of you. I mean,
it's got some good stuff in there. Yeah, it's got some good stuff in there. A lot of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend songs in there as well, which technically count, I think.
Okay, I've got a similar one, but it's just Disney musicals.
I've got some Moana in there. It's all right.
Nice.
Anyway, so 9 songs made it in, and so I think it's fair to give this movie a 9 out of 10. And I know that's very high, but I actually just really love this movie, Elliot.
Yeah, okay. I was going to go for 8. I really loved it, but it didn't quite tickle me as much as you from the sounds of it.
Yeah. It's just a ridiculous movie, and you just need to celebrate movies like this when they come along, you know? Movies that are willing to just be completely ridiculous.
Yeah. I think I saw they're doing a new version of it as well, so that'll be interesting.
Yes, we shall see. We shall see. You never know with these kinds of things, right?
No, exactly. The remake could recapture it, or it could just be shit. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. But enough about Little Shop of Horrors. Elliot, what are we talking about next fortnight? Well, don't answer, because it's my turn to prescribe something to you. So, Elliot, do you know what I really admire? Okay, so on the Doof Media Network, we've got a new show. We've got a new show called We Want More. That's joined. It's I think the baby show on the Doof Media Network. It's the newest one. Maybe Kingslingers is a little newer, but basically the newest show on the network.
Sure.
And for those of you who have never listened to We Want More, one of the hosts of that show delights in upsetting his audience. And I really admire that kind of attitude. So here's where I'm going with this.
That's so different to yourself.
Yeah. Do you remember we did an episode on the Adventure Zone ages ago, Elliot?
Yeah, I remember.
It was so good. And I've got to tell you, I've unsubscribed to the Adventure Zone recently because I just can't get into it anymore. Here's where I'm going with this, Elliot. It's a long path toward we're getting there. I found this new show that is an actual play D&D podcast, and I'm so into it. And I'm just going to stake my claim right here that it is going to upset the Adventure Zone as the best actual play content that I've ever seen.
Okay.
And that's what we're talking about today.
Actual play, you know, even if you get as specific as D&D podcasts, there's a couple of them out there.
And there are some really, obviously the famous ones, the Adventure Zone, Critical Role are the big kind of hitters, I think. But, you know, Hello from the Magic Tavern is obviously big as well. And there's a ton.
Is Film Reroll, I listened to a few episodes of.
Film Reroll is pretty famous. That's a good one too. This is a show called Fantasy High.
Okay.
It's a 18 episode long video series. I don't think there's an audio-only version of it, but you can watch it all for free on YouTube. It's put together by College Humor. Each episode is about an hour and a half to 2 hours long, and it's basically high fantasy D&D, but set in a kind of John Hughes, like, coming-of-age style film. So the characters are all teenagers, 14 to 16, going to a magical high school, and they are tasked, or they kind of find themselves embroiled in a mystery that they have to solve. And of course, they're orcs and half-elves and whatever, and humans and paladins and clerics and fantasy whatevers. And that's kind of the setting. And that's an okay set. Like, it's funny. It's been done before a few times, but it's okay. In fact, the current season of The Adventure Zone basically is that setting. But the characters on this, it's like a party of 6 plus their dungeon master. They're just all so good. They're all genuinely so good in their own very different ways. And we'll talk about it, rest assured, in a fortnight. All the characters are genuinely both hilarious and very, very compelling, like emotionally compelling to watch. And the dungeon master, whose name is Brennan Lee Mulligan, I think it is, or Brendan Lee Mulligan, is the best I've ever seen, I think I can say. People have their Matt Mercers and their Griffin McElroys, but I'm a Brendan Lee Mulligan stan now, I think. And you'll see this. I want you to watch at least the first 2 episodes, which is like 3.5 hours of content or so. Mm-hmm. And you will see what I mean just from the first 2 episodes, because there are some... First of all, the story is already so compelling, and the characters, even in 2 episodes, are incredibly engaging. But the pure strength of the dungeon mastery by Mr. Lee Mulligan is so strong. You'll be hooked. I guarantee you'll be hooked, Elliot.
Yeah, okay. And so the footage,
mm-hmm.
it's not like it's just them around the table, right? It's not like fully animated or anything.
No, it's them around the table. There is like miniatures, so they represent the play with miniatures, and there's also some little animated bits and pieces. So, for example, every time a new character is introduced, there's a little like drawing of them and some details, and it's kind of like it's produced, like it's highly produced.
Sure,
but it's mostly 7 people around a table.
Yeah, okay. I was just wondering because we've also talked about Harmon Quest.
Harmon Quest, yes, another great show, but a funny show. I don't think it's as funny as early Taz or as Harmon Quest, but as story-wise engaging as late Taz. It's the best of both Tazes, and I think that's why it's so good.
Yeah, I that'll be interesting to check out, because I think I have, oftentimes sort of talked about how I feel like Taz was best when it was more humor focused. Mm-hmm. I never quite got into it becoming more story focused, but something that is doing that from the start might sort of scratch that itch for me better. I don't know. Doing
that from the start, and clearly with people who are all like comedy writers or like comedic improvisers or stand-up comedians, or kind of, they're all writers for College Humor, right? So they're obviously, whatever your relationship with that website is, these are people who do comedy as a job, right? And so they're used to improvising, they're used to making things funny and compelling kind of emotionally. And they're able to just make this story so funny and yet flow in such a natural and authentic way that it's genuinely so well crafted. And we'll talk about that more in a fortnight when I can point at some tangible examples that you will have seen.
Yes, and of course I'll have to be taking notes on this because, I was talking about how many actual play podcasts there are around there. We'll be launching our own short-lived one of those soon, right? So I
actually have put together a trailer that I might voice and release soon, but we'll see.
So if there's not enough actual play podcasts out there for you, then how? Because there's more than
there's so many.
there's
behind true crime, it's probably the second most popular genre, right, of podcast.
Yeah, and so we will be dabbling, as is obligatory, I guess, at this point. But yeah,
wait, Elliot,
I'm excited to check this out.
Elliot, you know what this means? Doof Media needs to do a true crime podcast. It's just occurred to me.
Yeah, nobody's done one.
Yeah, we need to figure out what crime we would focus on, though.
Would it have to be doof related?
It would,
I don't know what that
means. Parahumans related, maybe. I don't know. What's a parahumans related crime that we could solve?
We'll have to think on this and find people to interview.
If you have thoughts about what parahumans-related crime we could solve, you should email them to us at mediamdpodcast@gmail.com, or thoughts about Little Shop of Horrors, or about Fantasy High, or really just about anything. We're not picky. We'll listen to your emails. Why not?
Yes, and if you like Media MD, if you like We Want More, any of the other shows on the Doof Media Network, if you're desperate to see that Doof true crime show that we've all been waiting for, head on over to patreon.com/Doof Media. You can see all the perks there. I'm sure, if you just join and then spam us with messages about how we need to do a true crime thing, it'll happen quicker.
So that's how it works. We do whatever the commenters say.
Small vocal minorities really drive.
That's
drive
where we read all those comments. It's worse than what season 3 of Arrow up in here. That's a very specific reference.
That's fucking niche. I love it.
If you want to engage more with the show, head on to patreon.com/Doof Media. All of the Doof Media shows are supported by our wonderful listeners, like Aquabuddha, who showed us this great musical movie. So if you want to be like Aquabuddha, go to patreon.com/Doof Media and support the network.
And chuck us a review on iTunes, I guess, if you haven't done that already, and you're listening this far in, because that helps us get seen by more people and grow.
Heck yeah. You can find links to all those things we talked about, our email, Twitter, the Doof Patreon, all that stuff on the website, which is doofmedia.com. You can also find there all of the previous clues for the Media MD ARG, where you can help us figure out just who is Dr. MD and why is his reprise so sad. Elliot, why don't you tell the listeners this fortnight's clue?
Rechargeable batteries.
Rechargeable batteries. And we'll see you next fortnight.